The garden is really starting to take off, so I'm super excited to show you how everything's doing. So another month has gone by, so that means it is time for another one of my monthly garden updates. And I'm really excited for this one because all of the plants, they're really starting to do something. They're all settled in their little spots, nice and cozy, and now they're really starting to grow. And it seems like every time I come out here, something new is happening and I'm getting all excited. So I'm super pumped to show you what's been going on. Now, I'm not gonna show you every single thing that's happening in the garden today because that would take forever. This garden is huge. So just like all my other updates, I'm gonna be giving you the highlights, things that I'm super excited about and I think that you'll really like too. But if you do really like these garden updates and you wanna see more of what's going on, make sure that you're following me on Instagram and Snapchat because that way you can get updates throughout the month and really see how things are growing. Okay, so the first thing I'm excited to show you is this cucumber situation. So we're trying a new trellis design and it's using these T-posts kind of on a V shape here, you can see, and then putting twine between them. Now we are gonna end up stringing this all the way up, but we've just done up to here so far because, you know, the plants are still small. But you can see they are starting to grow. This cucumber is starting to grab on here, and the idea is that the plants will grow up the sides and then hopefully the fruits will hang out on the outside, so it will be a little bit easier to pick. I'm also really excited about this design because if it works well, it's going to be something that's super easy to take down at the end of the year and not take up a huge space, you know, somewhere, because we can just cut the strings, that will, you know, just go away, and then we'll just have the T-posts that we have to store. And if we move over to this other cucumber bed, you can see that these are doing a little bit better. They're a little farther along. This is just a different variety and it seems a little more excited than the other one. So if we look under here, you'll see that there are a ton of flowers, lots of things growing, and I think we might have, yeah, there we go. We have some little cucumbers starting to come up. So, you know, here soon, hopefully we'll be really starting to get some. And I mean, with all of these flowers on here, it looks like we're gonna have a lot. Something else that's fun is the marigolds are starting to bloom, and this is a mix I planted. So it's got all kinds of these burgundy ones, these kind of bright red ones. There's more orangey ones and yellow ones. So it's really fun to start seeing the different colors come out and see the mix. And you can see there are more little flower blooms that are going to be coming onto the plants too. So as these continue to grow, hopefully we will have a ton of flowers here and everywhere else that the marigolds are planted. The next thing I want to show you is the squash. Now these are my yellow squash plants. I also have zucchini planted. They're not quite this big yet. The yellow squash seems to be doing a little bit better. And some people in my area are already getting squash. I am not because I just got mine planted a little bit later, but they're doing great. And you can see there are even some little fruits coming in. There's one there. If we come over here, oh, there's one right there. So hopefully we will get some. Now, one thing we have to look out for are squash bugs. And you can see, you know, sometimes they'll hang out under the leaves. We haven't had a huge problem this year, but oh, there's one. There you go. That's what they look like. That is what, I wish it would focus on him. That is what we do not want. Those little guys will kill your plants. So we are going to get rid of him. Come here, little buddy. Come here, we're gonna get rid of him and get him out of, oh crap, I dropped him. See, they like to get down and mulch and then you lose them, but I got this one. We are gonna take him to a different home. And in the past, I've had situations where squash bugs have totally demolished my plants and we've gotten like a couple fruits and then the plants all died. So I try to be on top of it. Now, I tried to hide the plants this year by surrounding them with marigolds and like tomatoes and nasturtiums and all kinds of different stuff. So hopefully that will confuse the bugs a little bit and they won't be like a beacon that they can find too easily. I'm trying to make them work a little bit, but we still have to keep an eye on the situation because they get out of hand. Once they get bad, it's like there's no turning back and there's nothing you can do. And I don't use any sort of pesticides or anything in my garden. So I would like to get some squash this year. That would be nice. So we're gonna try to make sure that those guys don't take over. Now with the squash bugs, in addition to checking for the bugs themselves, you also have to check for their eggs. So they like to lay them on the underside of the leaves. So every couple of days I just come out here and kind of look around and see how things are doing. None there, so that's good. But I think, yeah, see this leaf right here, it has some. So those little dots right there, those are the things that we don't want. Those are the eggs. So I'm gonna remove these right now and I can show you how to do it. So the method that I have found to work really well is the packing tape method. So you get some packing tape and then you just make a little loop and put it on your fingers like so. Then you're gonna go to your plant and you're gonna use the packing tape to take off the eggs. So all you have to do is you kind of, this is hard to do one-handed, so I'll try to show you, but you just take the packing tape, you press it down on where the eggs are, and then they should all come off. So I'm gonna do it and then I'm gonna show you what it looks like. Okay, so there you can see it took me a few different little touches, but I was able to get all the eggs off. And I like this method because it removes the eggs pretty easily, but it doesn't damage the plants. So the leaves are still super healthy and intact, but the eggs are off. And then from here, I just keep moving through the plants, checking for eggs, removing them. And then once your packing tape is kind of full, you can just fold it over so they're all contained and packed in there and stuck in there and they can't get out. And then I just throw them in the trash. But moving on from the squash bug eggs, there's some other fun things I want to show you in the garden. So another cool thing that we did is we put up some trellising for our beans. So I got beans planted, and then these were actually pieces that we had of this concrete wire up for something else from years prior. And so we just turn it on its side and it's making a really nice trellis. As you can see, the beans are just winding their way up. We just stuck it here in the ground. It has this tubing here, and then there is a piece of rebar here stuck in the ground, like hammered down, and then this slides on. So there's a piece of the rebar here, and then one down at the other end, and then this whole structure slides onto that, and the beans can grow up. And I got this design idea from 1 Yard Revolution, great gardening channel here on YouTube. This is something that I learned from him, so I will link his channel for you if you want to see how to make that. And his channel is just great for gardening tips overall. He has a smaller space, so he does a lot of tips on how to grow in a small space and get the most out of your area possible. He also does year-round growing, so he shows some season extension things and just some good general practical tips that anyone could use, even if you don't have a small space or even if you aren't trying to grow into the winter and things like that. Love his channel, so if you want more gardening stuff and you aren't already watching him, he's definitely one to watch. Keeping with the beans, I want to show you something else cool that's happening. So these are some volunteer beans that started coming up from stuff last year, and you can see we have some actual beans on here. So I'm going to be picking some of these for dinner tonight, but these seem to be the perfect size. Let's see if I can do this on camera. Yeah, look at that. So these are really fun. They are a purple bean, which makes them easier to pick, and we grew these last year, and I have a full planting of them in the garden. But this volunteer got started a little bit earlier than everyone else, and he's already putting out beans. So this is really, really exciting to have some a little bit early. And that's something that I think is really fun about gardening. Sometimes you do get these volunteer plants where, you know, some bean pods fell down, or maybe a tomato or something like that, which happens a lot in my garden because sometimes things you just don't get to them, or you drop something or whatever, and then the next year something happens and one of them decides to come up as a plant. And sometimes you have to pull those things out. We had a lot of volunteer beans growing in the path that I had to pull out, but this one was growing right in a bed, and it just happened to be next to a trellis where I was already growing snap peas, so it was a perfect little home for it, and it started growing up. And you know, hey, if we can get some food with me doing basically zero work, I'm totally fine with that. Moving on, the pepper plants are also doing really well. I have peppers planted in a few different spots in the garden. These are some of my jalapeno plants. You can see this one right here has a nice little flower growing on it, and all the ones down this row are doing great. We also have lots of basil in the garden. I planted 3 different types this year, and this is one of them. This is the Italian basil, and I've just got this spaced in between the pepper plants, and as you can see, we're gonna have a lot. And this is just a small amount of what's in the garden overall, so I'm gonna have to start thinking about how I'm gonna use all this basil. The other 2 basils I have growing are Thai basil, so we have a bunch of this planted around. I love this, especially for making drunken noodles. It's such a great flavor and something I just like to incorporate as often as I can. And then I also have some purple basil, and this is something that I'm growing for the first time. It looks beautiful. I am really excited about it. This is something that Jason was actually really excited to grow, and it was something that he requested when he saw it in the seed catalog. So it's looking very purple. We haven't tasted any yet, but we have a lot of plants growing, so I'm super excited. It's fun to have things, you know, that are different colors and just a little bit different from the ordinary. Now we have to talk about tomatoes, because you know I call myself the tomato queen. We originally had, I thought, 49 tomato plants in the garden. Then one died randomly. Sometimes that happens. I don't know what happened to it. It was just gone. But then after that, I was thinking we had 48. I went in and recounted, and I realized we had 51. So I don't know, I missed a couple, but we have even more tomatoes than I thought I did. Most of the tomatoes have, you know, flowers on them now. I think all of them have flowers, and a few of them are starting to get some fruit. And one that's starting to get fruit, I'm really excited about. So here we have planted our Black Beauty tomatoes. Now I have 3 of these plants. I've never grown these before. They're a newer variety. This was another one that Jason really wanted us to grow this year. And they are supposed to produce black tomatoes. And as you can see, we have some tomatoes growing here, and you can see the shoulders are starting to get kind of a bluish blackish color as they're starting to change. If you come over to this plant, you can see there's a nice little cluster there too. So we've got 1, 2, 3. You can really see their shoulders really well. So, oh, there's another one back there. So these are really doing something, and these are the first ones to put on fruit. And I was really surprised when I found fruit on these a few weeks ago, because usually it's the cherry tomatoes that go first. We have one variety that's super small, and that's usually the first one to give us anything. So I was shocked to see a large tomato be the first one to start putting out tomatoes. So we will see how these do. I'm not sure how long they'll take to actually ripen, so I don't know how soon we'll be eating one, but I'm just excited to see them on there because this is a new variety for us, and especially with new varieties, I want to make sure that they do well, because it is frustrating when you plant something new and then the plants don't do well and you don't even get to try the new thing that you're growing. But these seem to be doing great so far, so hopefully soon we'll have some black tomatoes to try. I mentioned volunteer tomatoes earlier, and this is one of them. So this one is growing right here next to the bed. So since it's not in the middle of a path, I kind of want to leave it, though I know once it starts growing, it might start to encroach on this path a lot, because that happens just in general with the tomato plants we plant in the beds. They can start to kind of lean over as they start to grow up the cage and come out over the top. So I'm thinking maybe I'll leave this here. I'm going to have to stake it eventually, but we can just see what it does, how it does, and what it is, because it's got to be something that we've planted before, because otherwise it wouldn't be growing here. But outside of that, I don't have any idea. It's starting to get some flowers here. So this one and the other one, or maybe even 2 that we have growing in a similar situation in different spots of the garden, we're just going to have to wait and see. And that will actually be fun to see how these do in this type of environment, and also to find out what they actually are. I also have several tomatillo plants out here, and they are doing really, really well this year. This is the healthiest they've ever looked. They have super thick stalks. They're already putting out a ton of their little flowers, which is very exciting. So I think we're gonna have a lot of tomatillos, because we have these 3, and then I have 3 that are in another bed as well. So that means lots of tomatillo salsa, which I'm very excited about. I also have a few different types of melons planted throughout the garden, and this one right here is the Petite Grille de Rennes, and this was the first one to produce last year, and it is doing the best so far of all the others this year. It seems to be the earliest melon that we have, so it's putting out tons of little shoots. You can see there's lots of little flowers down in there. I had originally planted 4 of these. 1 died. It was gone one day. I don't know what happened. Sometimes that happens, but we have 3 more, and that was originally what I'd actually planned for. The 4th one was just an extra that happened to do well when I was starting seeds. So you can see they're kind of going all over here. I'm trying to keep them away from the beans, because like this one is starting to grab onto the beans, and I don't want these to be growing together too much, but you know, as they grow, they're kind of just gonna go everywhere, and I can't control them too much. But in these early stages, I at least try to guide them and direct them in the ways that I hope they'll go. The lettuce beds are a disaster. The lettuce just didn't do well this year. We do have the Mizuna that did really well, and the arugula, and you can see the Mizuna has really put out some flowers. I've been trying to pick them off, but we were away at VidCon, so they really came out without me here. But I'm gonna start picking a lot of this off in the next few days and really eating it, and I'm actually gonna pick some tonight to have for dinner. And this is just Asian green, so you can eat it when it's a baby green, but now the leaves are bigger, I'll just take it off, chop it up, and put it in, you know, in my dishes, and just kind of mix it in there as much as I can. Same sort of thing with the arugula. It's really starting to put out flowers, so we just need to try to get as much out of here as possible. This lettuce bed, don't even talk to me. You can see there's a few little heads down in there. I'm just gonna pull those guys out and do what I can with them. But the dill in the back is doing great. We've got some all the way through here. You can see some are a little bit younger plants that came up later, and then we have some older ones that are already putting on seed heads. So I need to be using this more, because it just kind of like came up out of nowhere. All of a sudden we had these huge plants, so I gotta be planning ways to incorporate this. And then I might use the seed heads to make pickles. I've never done that before, but a lot of people do that, you know, because you use dill seed to make dill pickles. But if you have dill growing, once these seed heads plants get full and they're full of dill seed, you can just throw one of these in there and does the same thing, because it is the same thing and it looks really pretty because it's all clustered together like this. So I might try that this year. For anyone who's interested in the catnip situation, you can see it is just kind of exploded. It's everywhere and it's starting to put on some flowers. And it has also gotten super tall. So if I come in here and you see me, hello, last month it was up to like my hip. Now it's as tall as I am. So, you know, maybe a little bit short. No, I think some of these actually might be taller. So we've got like around 5 feet, maybe a little more in some areas. And that is just wild to me. I just didn't know a lot about growing catnip. You know, we grew it last year with small bushes. This year it came back, so it kind of had a head start. I didn't know it could get this tall, so I think it's pretty impressive, and it's probably the tallest thing I've grown other than the climbing things like the beans and of course tomatoes, because they just keep growing and growing all season. But I think this is pretty cool, and you know, as it's one thing about gardening, the more you do it, the more you learn, and sometimes you get fun surprises. And if you didn't catch last month's garden update, I will link that for you so you can go watch it. I just think it's really cool to kind of see how things progress. So if you go back and watch that, you can see where all of these plants were just a month ago, and I think you'll see that the change is pretty dramatic. And if you happen to be new here and you want more healthy eating tips and nutrition info and these garden updates that I do every month, then make sure that you subscribe, because eating healthy and living a healthy lifestyle really doesn't have to be complicated, and I want to show you how to do it. Thanks for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll talk to you next time.